Welcome to Gate Crashers.
A podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing.
Our mission, our creed, our code is this:
to make all nerdy things more approachable and accessible to everyone.
We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scarlett, and I use she, her pronouns.
My name is Ben. I use they, them pronouns.
And I'm Rachel. I use she, her pronouns as well.
All right. Today, thank you guys for stopping by. Your comic, Renegade Rule, is coming out from Dark Horse very soon. And you've mentioned before in conversations how Overwatch was an inspiration. So we're very happy. We had to have you on this special episode of Overwatch to inspire people to really check it out. So I just want to say thank you from all of the Gate Crashers for being here.
Thank you so much for having us on. We're really excited. Yeah, we're really excited to talk Overwatch and shooters and Renegade Rule and all things fun and video gamey.
Well, I anytime I get to talk about video games, it's a very nice, relaxing time. Most of the time, it's very relaxing. All right, so we kind of have, usually when we set it up and everything, we kind of like to tell our audience a little, we call it the back of the box blurb, to basically summarize and let them know about our topic. And so ours is where, we're talking about Overwatch. So we thought we kind of give them a little insight into Overwatch itself.
Yeah. So set 60 years in the future of a fictionalized Earth, Overwatch tells the stories of heroes, villains, and artificial intelligence. On this Earth, human-developed robots with heightened AIs known as Omnics. Things become out of hand when the facilities that produce the Omnics begin creating a series of hostile and lethal Omnics, leading to what is known as the Omnic Crisis. In order to fight against these hostilities, the United Nations formed Overwatch, an elite group of highly skilled and gifted individuals to help defeat the threat and restore order.
As all good hero stories go, due to some internal affairs and external failures, Overwatch was disbanded when the UN passed the Petrus Act. The game itself picks up 60 years after this act. One of the leaders, a scientist and lovable gorilla Winston, reaches out to his former comrades to once again form Overwatch to fight against a growing threat. And that is where the game kicks off and the story begins.
So before we kind of get, by the way, love your back of the box blurb. So I love it. So before we talk a little bit about some of the brief history of Overwatch, how did both of you, hear about it? Was it right when it came out, or was it something that you gradually kind of picked up and started playing around with?
So
for me, it was when when that first trailer came out with Tracer and Widowmaker, and everyone thought they were going to be gay. Like together,
and they were half
and
right.
I was like, I was like, I gotta get in on this, and that's kind of what led me into it.
That original trailer was just so amazing. I mean, it looked like a Pixar movie, like an original.
It did
everything. It was just so out of this world cool. Like, it just had, right off the bat, it just came built in with so much lore, so much history, such unique art, like kind of visual language, this world building, incredible action. I kind of came away from it being like, I'm not sure how much I'm going to play of this game, but I would totally watch a movie of it. And that's kind of mostly been my relationship with Overwatch, has been less of an active player and more a fan of the lore and the supplementary material, like the cinematics and the comics and all that.
Speaking of the cinematics and the supplementary material, I've always wanted to, I guess, pick up Overwatch, but I've also been kind of nervous too, and I'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to some of those questions. But over the weekend, I was like, okay, I'm going to prepare for this interview and do some research. And I went to YouTube and searched the cinematics, and they had a whole compilation of like all of them in chronological order. And it was like as long as a movie. It was like an hour and a half long. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing.
It's great. There's so much wonderful lore and character drama. Like the Genji, like his backstory with his brother, and like there's like it all, like as someone who just loves those big expansive universes like Marvel, DC, just the world of Overwatch just scratches that itch so much.
Yeah, some of those I wasn't expecting, like the stuff with Genji and was it Hondo?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is intense. So some of that kind of caught me off guard because I didn't expect it to get, I guess, as in-depth or intense as it did. But I was pleasantly surprised. So real quick, to let our listeners know some of the brief history of the topic itself. So Overwatch was released in 2016, I believe my research correct. If my research is correct, released in 2016, originally released on the PlayStation, Xbox, and Windows PC. But eventually, 2 years ago, was released on the Nintendo Switch in 2019. I think they brought it over. Developed and published by Blizzard Entertainment, which for I would imagine a lot of MMO lovers out there are big fans of Blizzard and no Blizzard. Described as like a hero shooter FPS, and just some more technical stuff, I guess, like monetary stuff. Blizzard revealed it earned $1 billion during its first year of release of the game. And then after 3 years, it had gained over 50 million players. Is considered to be among one of the greatest video games of all time. It's won numerous Game of the Year awards, and is apparently very popular with eSports. I think I was seeing something about like a league. They have like eSports league.
Yeah, there's the Overwatch League. I used to be a really big fan of it, but it's a thing.
It's like it's even more so than other like esports, which is very individual based. You know, they have like colors and mascots and colorful team names like they're in like the NBA or NFL. And it's just a lot of fun. And it was definitely its own kind of real life sports influence. Definitely worked well with what we were trying to do for Renegade Rule, which is much more a traditional sports story than it is like, as much as it is like them in VR doing shoot 'em up, bang, bang, explosion, laser action, it's much more of a sports story than it is like a trapped in VR, fight for your life story.
Yeah, I definitely, as I was reading that, I now that you pointed out, yeah, I could, because I didn't even, think of that, of putting it in like thinking as I was reading, but yeah, I would agree. I think it was more definitely of like a sports type dynamic versus just the focus, like the main center of like the game itself or being in VR itself. It was more of like, teamwork, team itself, and kind of working as a team.
Way more Mighty Ducks than Ready Player One.
Yes. Oh, that is a perfect analogy. Some of the themes that I picked up with Overwatch from what I've seen and just in my first attempts of playing, I would say very inclusive in my opinion. I think it's got a very diverse and wide roster of characters that come from all different walks of life, it seems, different countries, different ethnicities, different body shapes and sizes. And I thought that was awesome.
And a hamster.
Yeah, and a hamster. One hamster. We've got a hamster and we do have a gorilla. Right? Are those the only two animals in that game? I was trying to think.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the only two. So very diverse. And I think a core theme is like teamwork, because in the game itself, you have to, you've got to have your healer, you have to have your tank, and like your offensive, defensive people. So it's really focused on, you need to have those roles filled and work as a team.
I'm not like a video game historian, but I feel like you can kind of trace like the evolution of the first person shooter genre. Like if you start with like Counter-Strike, I guess, and Counter-Strike 2 is probably like your original like team shooter, where everyone's like kind of the same, just with like you can pick up different guns or slightly different builds. And then you get to Team Fortress 2, where you start getting very specialized, differentiated classes, but it still kind of exists in its nebulous video game verse that doesn't really have a cohesive narrative. Though again, has some very funny cinematic and inventive cinematics. And then Overwatch is that like next step with even more deeper specialized classes, and now with full-on lore and storytelling and world building.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's kind of up the game, right? With the intensity of, like you said, that story building, the world building, the lore that goes into it, the detailed backstories and backgrounds of some of these characters. I think it's definitely set the bar.
I think there's a lot. I feel like Overwatch and I think Demon Souls kind of at the same time kind of came out, and through supplementary material and just pure game design kind of mastered like the art of storytelling without story.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least that probably sounds harsh to Demon Souls, which just has its own crazy storytelling method that's just so perfect and beautiful for the video game medium. But just the way that something with that had, at least until you got to Overwatch 2, had had nothing even resembling a single player. It was like just the ultimate pure competition, and yet was still able to create these deep, nuanced, like rich characters, this vibrant world, and an active plot.
Mm-hmm. A question for both of you: was there any other, in your experience with watching the cinematics or playing Overwatch itself, is there any other themes that you've picked up on with the game itself?
For me, it's just like the diversity is the biggest thing that's always stuck out to me.
Yeah, it's always kind of has that multinational utopian streak of people being able to put aside their differences to come together and form something greater than themselves to deal with this greater threat. Which, Lord of the Rings, Avengers, I'm a total sucker for that narrative every time.
I think the diversity for me is probably the selling point that really kind of drew me into wanting to pick up the game, because I just like options. I like being able to, try out all kinds of different characters, especially in a game like this. I don't want to be stuck with these, 4 or 5 characters that, are kind of similar and there's not really much difference to them. So I definitely appreciated being able to not only having the options of different playable characters, but also the fact that, again, they are so diverse and there are so many different characters that are different body shapes and different ethnicities and races. And I think that really stuck out to me versus some of the other like MMOs and FPSs that we've seen in recent years.
Yeah. I think I think diversity in body shape is especially a kind of diversity that we don't often see, and is great to see in Overwatch, and definitely want to see more of from video games and comics and the like.
Yeah, I think one of the when I was watching the cinematics and they introduced May, I was like, heck yeah. I was like, I love her. I love her.
Yeah.
May is fantastic.
Her, and there's
May.
another character they introduced. I actually played her last night. I was in a match. I'm not good at the game. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. I was playing as, I think she's a tank character. She's Russian. I cannot.
Zarya.
Yes, her.
Yes.
And I was like, look at her. I was like, oh yeah, I feel like a badass walking around.
I'm glad, Rachel. I'm glad you said it and had the right answer, because I was about to just do a total brain fart and say Zendaya, which would not have been correct.
Oh God.
Mary Jane.
Zendaya the tank.
I think diversity was the biggest thing that kind of stuck out to me. And who might like this game? I would say, again, anyone who likes options, especially in characters. If you really like having a full roster of people to choose from and people to play with, or like different characters to try out, there's options. So maybe you're not good at this, specific character, in this class. There might be another character in that same class that you're really good at. So definitely anyone who, likes options. It's definitely a very colorful shooter, I would say.
If in general, if you're a first person shooter fan, this is an absolute staple of the genre for good reason. But if you're a gamer like me, who usually prefers to stay in single player waters, it is a multiplayer only game.
I do, for people that are single player, though, I do believe is that one of the big things to come with 2? Are they doing a campaign mode?
Yes, there is
I think so.
Single player content in Overwatch 2.
So that might be, if you are a listener and you're prefer first person, but maybe you're only a single player, then that might be something you might want to check out in Overwatch 2 when it comes out, because there will be.
I am very excited for that. Abe, so I can kind of dive into this franchise and engage with it kind of more fully as a gamer. But also, I gotta say, as much as I've been really enjoying all the cinematics and all the comics and the content, it feels like there's been a lot of working backwards and filling in our understanding of the characters, their backstories, their connections, their relationships, how the world got to where it is at the start of like where the game starts. And that's all full of just absolutely wonderful stories, great characters, and just really important storytelling. But especially in the cinematics, it feels like it's still, the story really hasn't advanced too far beyond Winston has put out a call and Overwatch is reforming. So I'm really hoping that if there's a strong single player campaign in this, we could see some like real deal forward momentum in this story.
I'm definitely, I want to get a little bit more comfortable with multiplayer, but again, I tried a few matches last night and I was like, I did the match with like the versus AI, and I was like, okay, I feel a little comfortable. And then I tried it online. And I was like, nope, I don't feel comfortable.
I played shooters. I played Halo online, Resistance online. Like, I'm not good at it. I'm not good. And small children say mean things to me when I'm not good at it. I don't like it. It's mean. I like playing against the robots where I get a fun narrative and get to feel like a superhero.
Yes, exactly. There was like, I was playing as Zarya and I was like, okay, I've got 400 HP. This will be fine. And then I get like 2-hit killed. And I was like, how? Explain to me how did you do that? I had 400 and you hit me twice, and now
when I play Pokemon, I will sink dozens of hours into breeding the Pokemon to have just the perfect stats and raising them in just the right way and getting all the perfect moves and just making them as online competitive ready as they could ever possibly be, and then never ever competing with them online.
Of course.
I just like the idea that they are the strongest that the game can possibly allow them to be, and then I need no outside forces just being like, yeah, but you still suck at this game. I'm like, no, stop it, outside world. Let me have this.
It is,
I don't know. You were pretty good at Roadhog that one time we played together.
I mean, first-person shooters are just fun. I feel like it's just as a genre that has to be one of the toughest learning curves. Like if you got it at the right time, then you can pick up most of them and have like a pretty baseline level of skill. And then if it was out of like your gaming comfort zone at that time, then must be such a weird genre to fully get like immersed in. But my entire middle and high school years were spent playing pretty much nothing but Halo.
We did mention how it is a colorful shooter. And to tie back onto that was so refreshing when I kind of picked it up and started playing. And I think that's why I kind of like Overwatch. And I will admit, I do like Fortnite because it is colorful and there's different things going on and it looks fun versus like some of these FPSs that are like Call of Duty or Warzone, where the colors are so dark and dull and muddy, and to me it's just something with playing those games I can't.
I mentioned the Resistance series from back in the PS3 days. That has to be the brownest franchise of all time. It is just you going from dirt to just there's no color. It is just glowing yellow to just dirt brown filter over everything. And it's from Insomniac. Like they went from something as colorful as Ratchet and Clank to just that. I don't know what it was about that 7th generation, but God, the color got sucked out of everything.
Yeah, I just can't do those games. I think that's another reason why I have never fully made it through the games Skyrim or like Fallout. Like I love the story, but it's something about the color scheme in those games makes it very hard for me to play them.
Where I run into issues with those games is that I need a certain amount of rails, like telling me what to do. And when you let me do everything, I just short circuit and don't know what to do.
That's also another issue of mine. I will have a main mission. I'm like, I'm going to go do this mission. And then I get sidetracked by a side mission. I'm like, okay, well, it's on the way. So I'll go do that. And then like 30 side missions later, I'm still nowhere near.
I'm able to do like the Grand Theft Auto and the open world games because they'll always still have like the blinking icon being like, hey, this is the thing you're supposed to do. And
exactly.
It kind of creates that like, but it's like, no game, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to keep just running over pedestrians and lampposts.
Exactly.
But I really think just, especially in that PS3 era when everything was just so drab and gray, how much did color just play a role in the Uncharted series success? Just look, we're in the jungle. Look how bright these leaves are. It's so green. Look at that water. It's so blue. You haven't seen colors like that since the PS2.
Quite literally. So kind of to wrap up, just our basic overview of the game, where to get it, where to stream it. I would imagine you could buy it on PlayStation Store. You could probably buy it online. I'm sure you can download it on Steam.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be Steamable.
Yeah.
Do people use Steam as a verb that way? Do you describe a game as Steamable?
I don't know if that is a thing, but I'm going to start using it in that way now with your permission.
Am I doing a big old how do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I would. Is that steamable? I am going to take that. I am going to start using that as
It's
a
fun.
verb noun.
Yay! I contributed to language.
But yeah, anywhere you can buy games, you can definitely get this. And I don't know if they've released a release date yet for Overwatch 2, but
They haven't yet.
they've released the trailer.
You can probably buy it at GameStop. Did you know you can still buy games there? Not just stock. You can buy more than stock of itself there. They still have stuff.
I went in there the other day actually because I finally caved and bought Animal Crossing.
Nice.
I haven't gotten that game. I didn't buy it when it was popular. My boyfriend Dan was like, he's like, "Why don't you get it so we can play together?" And I was like, "What's the goal? Tell me the goal. What is my motivation in this game?"
Here's the goal is just have an interesting and varied life, and boy, did that game come out at right the perfect time when people really needed something to just
I know.
Yeah.
just vicariously live a normal life through.
Exactly. This time last year, everybody was inviting everyone to their islands.
It was nothing but Tiger King and digging holes and selling butterflies.
Oh God, I remember sitting and watching Tiger King. I made a parody video of Carol Baskin.
Look, we as a society, we're going through some real heavy trauma. We coped the way we coped, and I have no shame about that. This is a society reacting to trauma.
Exactly. If people want to go and play as their little avatar with an island filled with adorable critters, that is completely a-okay.
We downloaded Katamari Damacy, my partner and I.
I think I can just imagine, as you say in that, imagine the box art of that game.
Rachel,
much.
what have you been playing lately?
Ooh, I've been playing it for a while, but I actually just played it before dinner. It's on the Switch. It's called 51 Clubhouse Games. 51, I think, or 41. I don't know. It's a lot, and it's basically like Solitaire, Mancala, like every just like classic, like board game, card game, and they have like darts, and it's all multiplayer, which is fun. So you can play with it's like a party game basically, but it's just really chill.
That sounds really cool. I need more chill games. That's what I need. I get intense with like the Outlast and Resident Evil and Red Dead Redemption games I've been playing.
Didn't decide. I've admitted to myself what an old fogey I am and just decided to go full nostalgia trip. So I've been replaying the Halo trilogy.
Nice.
And I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm playing on a harder difficulty than I did as a kid, so I can feel like I'm just dunking on younger me. Like the stupid noob they were.
Well, before we continue, we usually like to give our listeners the option to stop listening, go play Overwatch, go check it out, and come back and listen to the rest of the episode if you want to avoid spoilers. If you don't care, then keep on listening. All right, welcome back. Now that hopefully you have gone and checked out Overwatch for yourself, we can get into a little bit more deep discussion, deep dive. So what was the more of a personal question for the two of you? What got you into gaming? Not necessarily into Overwatch, but what got you into video games? Like, was there a specific game that came out or a specific system?
I feel like as long as I was alive growing up, there was like a video game system. Like I remember toddler age, like an NES and a football game. And then my mother and I together, when Super Nintendo came out, we would play, Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country. And in those and like in Mega Man. I remember those were the days. And and then that just gave way to N64 and then PS2. And I feel like PlayStation 2, maybe just because that was ages like 10 to 15, which was just ended up being like, but I just look back on PlayStation 2 and I'm just like, yeah, that was it. That was the golden age. That's when they fucking figured it out.
For me, it was GameCube. I mean, I remember being a kid and like sitting on my dad's lap and playing Duke Nukem when I wasn't allowed to, but he was like, don't tell mom, it'll be okay. You can play Duke Nukem. And I always remember that would be so exciting. But growing up, I was definitely a GameCube fan, and my favorite game, even to this day, I still love playing it, is Pikmin, the original Pikmin game.
Ooh,
I just bought Pikmin 3 on the Switch, so I've been playing through that also. It's very nostalgic.
I definitely think there's a strong argument to be made for that 6th generation of consoles. And then once you get to the HD shift in the 7th, where it suddenly just became so much more expensive to make a video game. I don't know. Maybe there's an argument that 6 was just when graphics were good enough to do stuff, but not so good enough that we weren't just rushing for photorealism and you still had to have art direction.
Yeah.
And then I feel like once we got to the 7th generation, it just became like the race to be as photorealistic and to have the blandest, most grizzled white, like brown-haired white guy protagonist as possible.
I think for me, the first time getting into gaming, I mean, I grew up, I never really had a system until PlayStation 2. But my cousin had like his Nintendo 64 and he had a GameCube and a PlayStation and PlayStation 2. So anytime I went over to my cousin's house, we would always play those games. And I always remember growing up with those old Mario games. We would play those. But my first console was a PlayStation 2, and I will never forget my love-hate relationship because my parents got it for me for Christmas, but my parents, bless their hearts, as we say in the South, they did not know that you needed a memory card. And they also did not get me PlayStation 2 games. They got me a bunch of PlayStation 1 games.
Oh, no.
which would work on the PlayStation 2. Because
exactly.
That shit was backwards compatible.
So here I am.
A DVD player, which is how I convinced my parents. I was like, yeah, you can play the DVDs on it if you get it. We can switch from VHS.
So here I am playing my favorite game that they got me that I would play was Pac-Man World. It was the 3D Pac-Man World. And I'm trying so hard to get as far through this game as I could in my allotted game playing time that I was given. And if I didn't get past a certain point, I mean, I had to turn it off. And every time I turned it back on, I had to start all over because I did not have a memory card.
No.
Oh, no.
I mean,
that's the worst.
That came out for that console, like Final Fantasy X, Kingdom Hearts, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. I decided just then that that the plural of Metal Gear games is like Attorneys General. It's not Metal Gear Solids, it's Metal Gears a Solid. I just learned that grammatical rule.
It was, I mean, ever since then I've been into gaming, but it's so many games. Exactly. So many of those games. I still didn't have a memory card yet when Kingdom Hearts came out, and I would go to the video rental store. We had a family video in town, and I would go there and I would check out the game for the weekend. And there would be times where I would put that game in and I had to go to bed. I didn't turn off my system because I did not want to start over the next day. So I let that system stay on all night. Sorry, Mom and Dad, for running up the electric bill.
I mean, it's on, at this point, it's on them. They could have saved more by just getting you the memory card.
Exactly. So here I am, like, 9, 10-year-old me trying to like hide and make sure that they can't tell that my system is on and that's not making noise when I go to bed. And then I would wake up in the middle of the night, play very late, and I would do the thing where I'd put a blanket up at my door so they couldn't see the light from my TV.
It's, I mean, that first game, I remember just being baffled by the marketing. Like, my 11-year-old brain could not handle, like, okay, like, I've played Final Fantasy X, love that to death. I'm 11, I'm 12, this is my favorite game of all time, Final Fantasy X. I'm down for more of that. What's up with the Disney characters? How come Belle is in my Final Fantasy game?
There's something about it. I think we're planning on doing a Kingdom Hearts episode, and I'm so excited to do that one because it's.
Oh, if you need people for that.
We will definitely. I'll mark you down.
Oh,
willing participant.
A relationship with Kingdom Hearts. I got my start in comics is as a freshman in high school, all the way through really college. Like for the next 7 years, I made a 4-panel sprite comic webcomic out of the sprites from the Kingdom Hearts Game Boy game. I'm not going to say spin-off, Game Boy Advance spin-off, because no Kingdom Hearts game is a spin-off. They're all stupidly, bizarrely important. Which is why I played Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memories, the recap melody game, because at this point, I'm fucking wise to your tricks, Tetsuya Nomura, and I know that, hey, are you going to, like, hide the answer to 20-year-old mysteries in your rhythm recap game? Fucking of course you're gonna bury the answer to 20-year-old mysteries in the rhythm recap game.
Naturally.
Speaking of mysteries and tying into the games and characters and stuff that you can learn about different characters, that was a poor segue, but I tried to make it work. What are some of your favorite characters of Overwatch? Going back to the game.
So,
for me, It's Pharah. I'm a huge Pharah fan, and when I actually play the game, I think I logged, like, I play on Xbox, and I think I have over 1,000 hours just on Pharah.
Ooh.
And not 1,000. I've had that. Okay, that would be a lot. Never mind. 1,000 hours playing the game, 100 hours on Pharah. That would be insane. Although I'm sure people have actually done that. But so she's my favorite. And then when I am not playing her, I like Orisa also.
It's because she can fly and has big guns.
Exactly.
And also her weapons are cool too.
What about your character, Ben?
So in the brief time that I played the game, which has mostly just been at Rachel's house when we've been hanging out, I enjoyed playing Roadhog because being able to just fling yourself around the game map with a chain is super fun. But in terms of the story and the lore, I really like Tracer. I just love her attitude, her spirit, like her heroism, her just sense of justice. Like, I don't know, there's just something very like Superman, Captain America about her. And I don't know, for this world especially, like of Overwatch, there's just something about that spirit that just feels so right and wonderful to see.
I have not gotten to play a lot of the characters. My goal is I would like to play at least a few rounds of every single character. That way I can see who I like, who I don't. I know that's probably going to take me a long time. But so far, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. I am probably basic as all get out when I say that one of my favorite characters is McCree. About 98%
Nice.
of the reason is because Matthew Mercer does the voice of him. And Matthew Mercer also does the voice of Levi from Attack on Titan, who I am in love with. That is beside the point. And then Ash, I really like her because I played with her and I was doing pretty well with her. And I was like, okay, I like this. I also like her special with Bob.
I love their cinematic, the McCree and Ash cinematic.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's just so much lore. Like, there's the whatever. Like, there's the Wild West like backstory, like spinoff. There's Genji and Hanjo have their ninja clan like mafia backstory. Like, there's just so many amazing stories for these characters in this world.
Yeah, I think there's so many different, like, again, it just ties into those options, right? There's so many options you can choose from and so many different pathways it can take you down. And as far as kind of picking your character and choosing your character, choose your character, and tying into like online gaming realm, have you ever heard stories from friends, colleagues, or experienced yourself any of the situations with like the online gatekeeping that tends to happen? I've not experienced it myself, but I've heard of other people, like when they're in a group going to choose their character, they basically get bullied out of playing the character they want, and everybody forces them in their group, hey, you need to play this character, or please don't play that character.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, this is why,
and it sucks, especially in Overwatch, when everyone, I mean, they've kind of changed the game where you can't really have a main anymore, but back when you could, if there were like 2 or 3 people who like playing the same character as you, you'd have to like fight over who you would want, and you would definitely get bullied into choosing something else.
I mean, for my part, that's kind of why, again, I don't really play these kinds of games. I stick to single players. That's like, again, I feel like the game I played the most online was like Halo and Resistance back in the PS3 days. And it was like, oh, well, there's a small like European child like calling me a bunch of really bad slurs. I don't like this. I want to stop.
I think that's the biggest reason why I am afraid to play online and actually have like my mic on or hear them, because again, one, I don't want to hear the bullying or being called names or anything like that, or being forced to play a character I don't really want to play. And then 2, the whole stereotype comes with, because I, sound female and identify as female, the whole thing with like, well, you're just a girl and you don't really know how to play this game. And that stereotype too, that I've encountered, not necessarily on this game yet, but in with other games I've experienced. And it's really saddening that, something that's supposed to bring us all like fun ends up turning into this very negative and toxic type of environment.
Well, I do have to say, I feel like with playing Overwatch, I have definitely made more friends than enemies in terms of like the people playing with me. And I'm going to say this, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of like random messages from people, but my gamer tag on Xbox is Queer Skies Ahead. And I've always gotten like all the fellow queer people message me and be like, oh my God, can we play together? And I'm like, fuck yeah.
I love that. I love that name. It's fantastic.
I had to fight Microsoft for that, but that's a story for another day.
Well, I'm hopeful, especially Ben, since you said that you haven't really stepped too much or delved too much into the multiplayer, but I hope none of that, the whole yelling and continuous gatekeeping, comes your way. And the reactions you've gotten, Rachel, definitely want to inspire me to take that leap, and hopefully, it won't be bad.
Yeah.
Another thing I kind of really liked about the game itself as I was playing through was it was simple. It wasn't like so many things thrown at you, like, in like Call of Duty, where you have like 15 different weapons. Like, you have this weapon and you have this attack and then this attack, and then you have a special. And I was like, that's very easy.
Yeah. I like that they have all of that, but it is so hard, especially like I could feel for you like playing yesterday and like playing against the AI and maybe it was overwhelming, I don't know, but I remember when I first started playing, I was so overwhelmed by like having to figure out how to like go from one weapon to like the special weapon or whatever, and then there's people shooting at you, and then you have to know where your teammates are, and then then there's someone behind you, and it's sometimes the mechanics are kind of like complicated in my eyes, at least.
Did you play a lot of first-person shooters before Overwatch?
No, actually, I don't think I ever did. Now that I think about it.
Yeah. So I wonder how much is just kind of the first-person shooter learning curve.
That's true. Yeah, called me out.
And we've talked about how the story is interesting, right? So I mean, I think we all agree that it's there's a lot with the story that really pulls you in.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
the world is just so. I mean, the characters are so varied. They're designed so striking, and they each. I mean, with every cool design, you have just the sense that there's this three-dimensional personality and this compelling backstory that adds to the lore of the world. Like it, I don't know. It just reminds me of it reminds me of a few things of like Marvel, DC. It reminds me of Mortal Kombat. Just the way it can pull from so many different influences and just weave this cohesive whole. Or like everywhere you peek, it's just the world getting bigger and more magical.
I think the thing with the cinematics was probably like, I think it was just very smart on their part to, I guess, put those out there and release those, just so people can see a little bit more of the character and find an attachment or just get that more in-depth background and lore, and pick on that. So I think as a person freshly coming into this, that definitely helped me instead of, sitting and reading a bunch of forums or a whole like Wikipedia page for a lot of the backstory. You can actually see some of that stuff play out. So I really did appreciate that, especially from, like I said, a new perspective, a new player perspective. So when you're playing, are there any game modes that you prefer? Because I know there was like, 3 or 4 different game modes that you can have on the game? There might be more than that.
I think it depends, at least for me, on the season when they have the different, like they have different game modes for whatever event is going on. And I guess it's kind of a lame answer, but I always like the archives one where they open up like all of the past event game modes so you can just play anything.
Ooh. I'll have to look up that. I have just learned, because again, I'm not that big of an online multiplayer gamer. So this whole concept of seasons is kind of baffling to me. Like my Dan plays Fortnite a lot and he's like, "Oh, well, the new season's about to come out." I was like, "What does that mean? Explain to me, what does that mean?" I hadn't even thought of that until like Fortnite and Overwatch, and I was like, "Oh, there's chapters and seasons of this game. I didn't know that happened."
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know what it means, but it's a thing.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we all have enjoyed Overwatch. We enjoyed the lore. We enjoy the game itself, whether it's, just playing against some AI or playing with some friends we've made online, or just testing things out as I've been doing. But let's start talking a little bit about Renegade Rule. I'm going to kind of real quick go over the different credits. So written by Ben Kahn. I hope I'm saying your last name correctly.
Yes, you are.
And Rachel Silverstein or Stein?
Silverstein, you got it.
Silverstein. Art by Sam Beck. Letters by Jim Campbell. And logo design by friend of the show, Tim Daniel, who actually did our logo design as well.
Tim's work is
Nice.
so stunning. And I'm so grateful that we got to have one of his amazing logos gracing Renegade Rule.
When I was reading this, I was like, that design, I was like, it looks oddly familiar, but not, if that makes any sense. And then when Dan told me, he was like, yeah, Tim did their design too. He did our design. I was like, that's it. There was just something about his art style that stuck out. And I was like, I feel like I've seen that somewhere, like that same energy, that same flow. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. But it is a really beautiful logo, I have to say.
Tim's logos are just like nothing else.
They're beautiful.
He's so good.
So one thing, there's a few questions we have, but first off, I just wanted to comment some of the things that I saw, and if you want to comment on any of those things as well. So one thing I have to say, as I was reading the comic again, just with Overwatch, there was diversity, and I appreciate that so much. And seeing things and seeing different people, all different races, genders, sexual orientations, etc., get like their spot on a comic or a movie, etc. So to see that there were characters that were LGBTQ plus, that were Jewish, different races and different body shapes and sizes, I love that. So amazing job.
Thank you a lot. Like, that was definitely a priority and really important for us, was to create a diverse world and to create a really not toxic vision of gaming, where people aren't bullied for gaming. There isn't any prejudice, and just people of all stripes of life can just be accepted and and compete on their own merits.
Yeah, it was. I appreciate, like, as a reader, it was very refreshing and beautiful to see. So I do have to say that. Another thing that I noticed, and I'm positive this was intentional, but I'm not sure, if everyone had like, I guess I don't actually know the whole goings on of what it takes to put in and create a comic book. But as I was reading, I noticed there were different parts of the comic. And I guess this goes back into the art by Sam, but certain colors of like the different LGBTQ plus flags were kind of scattered throughout. In my opinion, I thought that's what it was. I could have just been seeing things, but I think when towards the end, there's, spoiler alert, there's the kiss that happens between the two captains, and it looked like there was the colors of like the specific lesbian flag, and then there's a character who's bisexual, and it looked like there were the like purple, blue, and pink colors in the background. I don't know if that's me reading into it, but I loved it.
It's definitely not you reading into it, but I think a lot of the credit for that one just goes to Sam, and just with the beautiful colors and the wonderful lighting, and really just like, just letting even the lighting embrace the queerness of the book.
I loved it. It was chef's kiss. So speaking of chefs, we do have one question that is a very tough hitting question and usually stumps a lot of our guests who come on this show. So we do have to ask this question. What is your favorite sandwich?
Ooh. Okay, I know this. Easy. Crunchy peanut butter and honey, but specifically honey from Indiana that my girlfriend's family sends to us. Has to be that honey.
Honey from your honey.
Honey from my honey.
Well, that sounds very interesting, but I do have to applaud you because my partner Dan does not like crunchy peanut butter, but I love crunchy peanut butter, and he thinks I'm weird because of it, and I'm like, you're weird.
actually, speaking of peanut butter, I don't know why this just popped back into my head. It was like a flashback from college, but I dated this girl, and me and her would always argue over crunchy versus creamy peanut butter and whether there was a price difference at the grocery store. And I was like, yeah, crunchy is way more expensive than creamy. And we would always fight over this until one day we went to the grocery store together and they were the same price. And I was like devastated.
Is that why? Like, did you break up because of the peanut butter prices?
We might as well have.
Like, that was it. Like, you knew right then and then the relationship was going nowhere.
Oh, yeah. Especially because I was wrong. I should have just been like, all right, well, I'm wrong. We're done. Goodbye.
Is this why you got the law degree, to avenge, like, to make sure you're never wrong about peanut butter prices again?
Exactly.
I just mean, like, I will be able to legally argue my way out of ever being wrong.
So
at the moment, at least, I don't know if it's my favorite sandwich now and forever, but for the last few weeks at least, I have been really enjoying a chicken cutlet sandwich on a hero with hot sauce and blue cheese.
that sounds like something
Nice.
Dan would really like. He's very into, like, he loves chicken cutlets. He loves spicy things, and he likes blue cheese, and I don't. So that definitely sounds like something he would want to make.
It all is good flavors that flavor good together.
So when you decided to write Renegade Rule, what were some of the themes that you were looking to cover with your story?
We
Rachel,
definitely
you
wanted to
wanna
make
tackle
it.
this? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I think one of the biggest themes for us was we wanted to make it something that was about friendship, specifically queer friendship, that not only would appeal to the queer community, but would also appeal to the gaming community as well.
For the gamers and the gamers.
Gamers. Definitely.
I love it. I think you definitely accomplished that. It seemed like it was such a natural story. It flowed so well, and it just felt natural. Like it was such a good story and a good read. And I ran through that book. I just picked it up and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this, and it was like boom, because it was good. And I was like, I want to read it. I want to see what happens.
Thank you. That means a lot. Like, seriously, I'm just smiling and blushing. We wanted to just show queer people getting to be like friends with other people, like getting to be openly and celebratory themselves, but also in a story that is really just about them getting to say funny things and do kick-ass action and get to be the heroes of their own sports movie.
Oh, definitely mission accomplished with that. I do have to say. So what about gaming do you think makes such a good topic for a story to explore?
Ooh,
I think at least
that's a deep question.
in the world of comics, it's something that hasn't really been explored that much. At least, right? Nothing that I've really seen.
What I feel like, as in the world of like video game movies or video game comics, there's the ones that are adaptations of video games,
Right.
which, at least in the world of movies, tends to be a pretty dicey proposition for movies not called Mortal Kombat.
Here's hoping that the new Mortal Kombat is going to be awesome, because it looks awesome.
It sure does, and I love the first movie like to pieces to death. Like it's one of my absolute favorites. But I think at this point, video games is such a big part of our lives. It's such a big part of how we spend our time. It's such a big part of how we interact with others. It's how we interact with and understand the world around us. I think there's so many stories to be told about being a gamer and the experience of playing a video game, because ultimately it's all just part of the human experience.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Like you said it all. Took the words right out of my mouth. I think again, Rachel, you pointed out really that now that I think of it, there's not really been a lot with comics, I think, that explore that realm of video gaming, at least not that I recall
Right.
too much. So I definitely corner the market on that. What did you what in Overwatch really inspired things in your comic specifically?
Definitely the teamwork aspect of it. And there wasn't anything where we're like, let's take this from Overwatch, but we definitely thought that we wanted to incorporate the teamwork aspect, and we were thinking okay, how do players of the game interact with one another, where we wanted to have an angry healer, and that's something that when you play Overwatch, or I'm assuming most first-person shooters, that's something that you would come across. Especially in Overwatch, you'd have the angry Mercy main who just thinks everyone's fucking up all the time.
I think I would put any role-playing group, anyone who's designated the healer can relate to the frustration of your teammates.
Yeah,
Right.
the first panel that opens up, she's like, "Quit dying, you stupid bitches," and I love that. Because exactly how you feel. That's kind of tying back into Ben, our earlier discussion about Kingdom Hearts. That's kind of how I felt when Goofy kept dying or something like that. And I'm like, Goofy, stop dying.
Oh my God. Or Donald just being like,
he won't heal you.
He won't heal you. You're like, here, Donald, stop giving all your potions to Goofy. He's got full health. Fuck off, Donald.
Exactly. So that type of the fact that is the first thing I opened up to and saw, I was like, yep, this is going to be a good read, because I was like, I feel this on such a personal level.
I love that one. Once we had, Rachel, I feel like that was definitely a line you came up with. And then once we had it, it was that was it. That was the beginning of the book. There was no other opening. And I love it. I think it's just such a great line to open on in terms of the character. But I also feel, we open on an alien-looking rocky moon world. There's lasers, there's rockets, there's explosions everywhere. It's a war zone. And yet with a line like that, I feel it does a lot of work in letting people know right from page one that there's something very unserious and unreal about this war zone that they're witnessing. And to me, that was where so much of the fun came from, is these people who on paper are engaged in an absolute life and death fight, and yet are not acting like it at all, because it isn't.
It was beautiful. I love this. I know we have the digital version of it, and I'm definitely hoping to get this physical, because I just want to have a copy to put in my personal library, because it's, again, such an amazing job. Sam has done an amazing job with the art and the writing. It's beautiful. I do have to say,
I can't say enough good things about Sam's art. I mean, just the way she brought the characters in the world to life. We are so lucky to have gotten to work with her and with Jim, and just the fine editorial folks at Dark Horse who helped us bring it all together.
Well, I definitely, for folks that are looking to find something new to read and get into something new, that maybe have a love for games, and not just that, but the LGBTQ plus queer community as well. It is a definite read. Renegade Rule. Such amazing, and we can't thank you enough for coming on here. But we do have one final question before we let you lovely people go. If you had a Rube Goldberg machine, what would it do?
I'm going to say knock over dominoes, because before this interview, I had no clue what that was. I know it has something to do with dominoes.
Good answer. There you
go. Big, complicated machine full of doodads that just exists to scratch my kitty's belly when he's chilling in his box full of like cardboard and paper.
Aww.
That seems like another beautiful answer, and like one of the wholesome, right? You got to take care of the kitties.
Yeah, just like the automatic, because he's always chilling in his little, like we call it his hot tub box, because it's just a perfectly sized box for him full of like loose paper, and he's always just chilling at it and like showing his belly. So like, let's just make a machine where he's just like chilling out getting belly rubs.
So to let our folks at home and our listeners know, where could they find you if they wanted to follow you on social media or learn more about your works?
So I'm on Twitter at Flirty Mango.
And you can find me on Twitter at Ben the Kahn. You can also find more about my past comics and upcoming works at benkahncomics.com. Past comics are on Comixology. Renegade Rule coming out May 26th in comic book stores everywhere. And then this September, together with Giorgio Brooks on art, is the release of the comic book OGN tie-in to Ubisoft's Immortals Phoenix Rising that I wrote. So very excited for that to be coming out. So if you're a fan of Phoenix Rising and want to check out the next chapter of the story, make sure to check out our OGN from Great Beginnings out this September.
And if you would like to follow us on our social medias, you can find us at our website, gatecrashers.fan, F-A-N. You can find us on Twitter at gatecrasherspod, P-O-D. And the same for our Instagram at gatecrasherspod. And you can also listen to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thank you so much, Rachel and Ben. It was wonderful having you here talking Overwatch, talking Renegade Rule, and we can't wait to have you back here some other time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for joining.
Gatecrashers.